Okay, kia ora from Aotearoa. That's hello in Māori from New Zealand, the land of the long white cloud. I'm assuming everybody can see me and hear me. This is Jude Horrill from New Zealand. So thank you for joining my session. It's 40 minutes and I like to keep things simple. As you may have read in my session outline, I'm going to chat through my story for about 15 minutes and then open it up for questions and just free-ranging discussion. So yeah, this session is called Tree Change, from corporate to mushroom farmer. I'm 55 and I was born in New Zealand. I left New Zealand at 21 to take on the world with my cello. So I started off as a musician, a cellist playing in symphony orchestras. And then I moved into marketing and communications and change management, and then into organizational development, primarily in the area, which is a big flavor in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, of all of business agility. So yeah, how did I get here? Life happens, huh? Everybody has their own life story. I guess I could say that I am a change agent, someone who's always looked to experience lots of different things, move on, make decisions, try things, jump in. Some of the characteristics that might be described that go along with that are confidence, fearlessness, risk-taking. All of these things I have been called, and not until recent years did I go, oh, well, maybe that is the case. Maybe that is why I've lived this life, and others maybe haven't. But it doesn't mean to say that I don't feel the fear. I just do it anyway, which, as some of you may know, is a great title of a great book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. In terms of risk-taking, well, I think that many of us are going to have to get to a point where we will need to go down that path, be a little more comfortable to make decisions maybe more quickly with less information than we would be comfortable with. And yeah, then just go with the flow after that. I don't have any slides with this for this chat today. Even before I left the corporate and consulting world, I was big on having a conversation with people, making it more personal, listening to people's stories and situations, and responding in a very more personal way. But having said that, there will be 2 decks that will be shared for you after the session, and they are on my LinkedIn profile, but I think Rebecca will put them somewhere easier for you to find. One is called Adaptation. When it comes to the topic of change management, I've always thought that was an oxymoron, because one can't manage change, and one can't manage change for and on behalf of other people. One can only do it for oneself. You may be familiar with Gandhi's famous quote of "Be the change that you want to see in the world." Alongside that is the saying, you can only change yourself. So change management, even though I had a career in it, it was and was basically global head of change and communications for the largest division at ANZ Bank when I lived in Melbourne. I preferred to always refer to it as how should we or could we adapt And I chunk it down into bite-sized pieces and used to refer to what could we think about adapting in terms of our thoughts, our mindset, our view on things, our behaviors, our communication, our language. What could we adapt even slightly on any given day? So one of those decks is called adaptation. Another deck, which is a hero deck that I could still use to this day. I think it's still hugely relevant to the new way of being, leading, and working in one's life, let alone in one's workplace, is called business agility. Now, again, I talk more personally these days since my tree change to become a mushroom farmer. So, but there is lots of good content in there. So that's called business agility. Please feel free to check out those decks. Okay, so how did I end up here? Gosh, well, after many decades away from Aotearoa, I thought, yeah, let's go home. I wanted a simpler life. I was still available to do consulting. But more and more, I was having the one-on-one coaching sessions with people who were looking to make changes in their life. So I came home and I had met a partner 5 years ago, Brent Williams, who is also a Kiwi boy. And he grew up just down the road from here on the Kapiti coast, which is just northwest of Wellington, if any of you know New Zealand or have been here. And our vision was to come back to New Zealand and travel around and see what was happening, what people were concerned about, what people were doing, and buy some land. To go off-grid and to learn about permaculture principles and live a sustainable, simpler, happier life. So we found some land after a year or so. And then the question was, okay, what business could we build, both being quite entrepreneurial, that we can take off grid, that would suit this lifestyle? And Brent had been doing a lot of reading about the rise of plant-based eating, people who were concerned about the environment, people interested in their health and well-being, the rise of an interest around the world in fungi, and also these types of mushrooms that we ended up growing, the oyster mushrooms and shiitake, one can grow indoors. We refer to it as indoor vertical farming. There's no soil, there's no manure, there's no smell. It's very clean, it's very fast, it's very effective, it's very efficient. And so we did that. We launched 2 years ago and set up our clean room. We grow from tissue culture right through to fruiting in our grow rooms, which is in recycled shipping containers. In building this business, we have used many principles of lean and agile to just come up with our first sprint, so to speak, or an idea, do it. If it fails, move on, adapt. Yeah, and use very simple process of setting up. Nothing complicated, just basically get going. So there's another piece of advice, is if you're looking for change or you're wanting to instigate some change for yourself, just start with yourself, make a decision to do something, and then get on with it. And it's amazing how other people will follow. So we've been doing this for 2 years now. We're on a beautiful block. We have 3 hectares. If any of you know anything about permaculture principles, one of those principles is community, one of community. And we have we're still building on that. We meet people almost every week who come to our farm. We take them through how we do things, and yeah, and people are just amazed at how we have started this and how we're going. This morning, we had 2 people, as we come out of, in New Zealand, it's referred to as level 2. We're at level 2 now. People are venturing out, and we're taking farm gate visits. We've had 2 families come so far this morning, which is wonderful. And they've picked up their mini mushroom farms. So we sell, a mini mushroom farm, we call it, which is a fully inoculated, ready to go grow bag. They're super fun, super exciting. Again, if you'd like to check something out online after this chat, our business is called mycobio.co.nz. Have a look. In New Zealand, if for those of you who are in Australia, I was mentioning to Rebecca earlier that if you're interested, following this session, in growing your own mushrooms, the oyster mushrooms, the grey and the pink, are absolutely delicious, or shiitake, there is a business in Australia called Life Cycle who sell these. So the themes that we responded to at farmers market, so we do B2C, we chose to do that, to sell directly to consumers at farmers markets, which have been closed for the last couple of months. But we really delight in the customer conversation. And the themes that people are excited and joyful about is that they can grow their own protein, boost their own immune system. They can grow in an apartment in a city, and they are really, really excited to just watch them, because it's a really fast growing, exciting thing. So there we are. During lockdown, we've been fine, because being business people, we approached this venture with a business head. It's not that we grew mushrooms for the love of mushrooms and we've been passionate about mushrooms all our lives. As I said earlier, it was really, what's a trend? What is a business that would suit this new lifestyle, this tree change of ours? And so Brent had a career in IT, so super lucky for us. He has built our website and does all of the e-commerce, and we have a wonderful CRM called HubSpot, which is all linked. And so during lockdown, with no farmers markets on the weekends, we wound down our fresh production, and we have been going gangbusters with our online sales of our mini mushroom farms all over New Zealand. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting back to the markets, and sharing our experience and our story, and helping others as we go along. Before I open it up to any questions, I think there are 3 things that I'd like to share with you, which have been part of my journey in the last very rapid change I've made in my lifestyle. And they are, think about 3 things. One is pay down your debt as fast as you can. I think this will resonate with a lot of you, especially with this pandemic that we are experiencing at the moment. Capitalism and consumerism, I don't think has done many of us any good in the long term. Who knows what's coming next? Anyway, 3 things. 1, pay down your debt as fast as you can. 2, work out what you really need, not what you want. And 3, learn how to make decisions faster. So have a think about those 3. It worked for me. And it's amazing the life now we have that's fully sustainable, where we barter and we grow our own food. How much you actually need to live a really super joyful life. Okay, that's it from me. Love to hear from those of you who joined the chat. So yeah, please unmute for questions, and we'll go from there.
Thanks so much, Jude. I'm sure people on the call are thinking of some questions, but I will start and monopolise your time. For me, and we've spoken before, but I just think it's absolutely fascinating. The tree change bit makes sense, but what I love is that you've taken all of your knowledge from corporate life and you've adapted it, as you say yourself, to this new lifestyle. So you're applying all of those principles. If there are people who don't think they're yet ready for that, how do you think they can potentially skill up and prepare?
Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, change is it's an individual thing. You can only change yourself. So in terms of skilling up, and again, in my career as a coach, it's about prompting questions that you may ask yourself. For example, what would give me joy? I don't know any of the people in this chat's situations. I can assume that you're all in paid employ. Some of you may be contractors or freelancers, not sure. But one of the things that is deeply fearful for people is, I have to have a job. I'm nobody if I don't have a job. My identity and my life is my job, but I hate my job. What do I do? Well, therein lies the crunch. I think, when I was working with people in the workplace, and if you are all still in paid employ, again, it goes down to that principle of, what can I do every day or even every other day to adapt my approach, my mindset, or my behaviors, or just adapt or shift one little thing. This might be how you approach your colleagues. It might be how you approach a project you're working on. It might be the kinds of questions that you will ask within team meetings. Not sure, again, whether any of you are in a workplace where Agile has popped up, or Scrum, or having stand-ups, working visually, problem solving collaboratively. If you have, then again, I think this is hugely valuable for the current workplace, because it's hopefully bringing the real issues out to the surface. So that is one area where you can, to your question, like, skill up. There are some others, which again, I'll refer you to the deck on adaptation and business agility and feel free after the session to ping me on LinkedIn if you'd like to continue presentation, any questions or chats about that. So I can see a couple of other, okay.
Yeah.
So
good question from Cairo there. What, if any, research did you do to lead you to mushroom as your crop, in inverted commas?
Oh, research. Okay. Well, if you know about one of the world's leading mycologists, Professor Paul Stamets, he is in America. His surname Stamets. And if you listen to Joe Rogan podcast, he's done a couple of corkers with Joe Rogan. And also put out a movie just late last year called Fabulous Fungi, I think it's called. So yeah, we did a lot of reading about his work. Also, you can learn a lot from YouTube. Sometimes when people say, how did you learn to do this, bro? We go, hey, YouTube taught me everything I know. There's nothing kind of secret or any intellectual property about growing these mushrooms. A couple of, again, in America, one Canadian, one American grower, we watched a lot of their YouTube videos. That's actually part of their business model, is what they learn, the mistakes they make, the workaways or woofers that they have working with them and on their property, which we also have here. They feature them, and they feature their learnings on YouTube. So that was super. So it's great to read, Cairo, that you're a farmer. You've got 2,000 acres. Whoa. And a consultant. Okay. It's good to read. The mix is good for you. That's great. Yeah, so Brent and I both made the leap. He made the leap first to set the business up, and I kind of funded it for year one. But last year, year two, I did the jump as well. So we're now both into it. So other questions that were there. There was a question from John. What was the time frame for the tree change transition, and how did you change yourself along that period of time? Do you still feel you're adjusting? Okay, thanks for that question, John. Yeah. So my tree change transition, I guess I could say it was probably a year while I was living in Fitzroy, Melbourne, where I was going, you know what, am I done here? And what about New Zealand? Could I go back to New Zealand? Then the next step was, so moving back was a year in the making. And then we were here for, 6 months before we came upon this decision to do mushroom growing, and then another year before we found the land. So all up, the complete transition has been 2.5 years. The tree change was there from before we even left Fitzroy, Melbourne, because our desire was to come back to New Zealand and buy land. I still, I think I'm fully adjusted now. Probably the adjustment at the moment is similar to many of you. You know, I'd said to Brent the other day, I'd love to be able to just, go out to a pub, have fish and chips and a couple of shardies with some friends. So that's, it's really now about adjusting out of this pandemic situation. But my transition from my consulting work, that took pretty much all of 2018. I still was flying backwards and forwards in New Zealand, Australia, doing consulting work, doing some work with Fonterra here in New Zealand and Ministry of Education, so corporate and government clients. So it wasn't until my full transition to just stop doing any other paid employ other than harvest mushrooms and sell beautiful mushrooms and cook beautiful mushrooms was 2019. So yeah, thank you for your question, John. Just scrolling down, so the research, I've covered that one off. Are there any other questions? Oh yeah, fantastic fungi. Thanks for putting that up. Yeah, it's a great doco. The other great doco, just while people are thinking of maybe some other questions, is called The Big Little Farm. It's a couple in California who, bought some land as well and went into regenerative farming. And they've been hugely successful. And he was a film producer, and he has made that movie. So that's really cool. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I'll throw another one in. Interested, Jude, in any observations or thoughts you've had given the change that the world is going through. You moved to a farm well before the world was struck by COVID, for want of a better term. Do you, I guess, what are your observations from how the rest of the planet is coping versus you on your lovely sustainable farm in beautiful New Zealand?
Yeah, well, gosh, where do we start? Before this pandemic, Brent and I would often discuss that there would be something that would occur that would be big. Futurists were talking about 2050, there'd be this coming together, a confluence of environmental, social, and economic factors that would lead to some big event that would make us all sit up and take notice and have to change our lives. Well, and often in our work, working with senior executive leaders or groups of workers right on the front line, so the top of the house and the bottom of the house, we would talk about, you know, some getting ready for dealing with continuous change and disruption, right? And people are faced with less information and what do we do now, and more uncertainty. And then this pandemic happened. Wow, okay, so I love this meme that's going around for a couple of months that said, this virus has sent us all to our rooms to take a good, long, hard look at what we've done, kind of like a naughty child. That's kind of, it's kind of happened now, hasn't it? It's been a leveler. So what have we seen? The conversations we have with our customers, and the things that they're coming to us for. So, by the way, we still feel that we're showing leadership through our mushroom business and through our lifestyle change. Is what can I do to keep my family safe and to keep my family fed? So, people are interested in the properties of these mushrooms. They do boost your immune system, full of vitamin B and D, protein. People are looking for more that, gosh, this has happened, and the supermarkets, I stand in a queue. I can stock up on dry foods and canned foods, but what about growing my own fresh food? So in our own little world, in our own business, we have seen a huge change there. And the fact that we were ready to, with our mini mushroom farms online, meant that we could help people with that. And that's how we positioned our little ads that we placed on Facebook was, hey, how can you feed your family, you know? So who knows what's going to happen out of this? We are hearing and seeing more talk about the 4-day working week, which our Prime Minister has put out there for some employers to consider. We think the 4-day working week is great. One of her angles there was that if people have 3-day weekends, that they will do domestic travel, and that will help our tourism a little bit in some way. We also are hearing increasing talk about the universal basic income. Our experience living like this, we are living on our own basic level of income now, which is hugely reduced from what I used to charge per day as a consultant to what we might earn in a week or a month. So these kinds of things, I think the world is grappling with. It's been a leveler. I think a nice thing is that we're all in the same boat. And how is the world going to work collaboratively and come back to their sense of community and place, and more of a sustainable lifestyle? So I hope that helps answer that in some kind of way. I just saw another question from John. Do I eat my own produce, or how has my diet changed? Are we also growing other food on our property? Yeah, so yes, we do eat our own mushrooms pretty much every day. If we have any left over, we sell out, so we often don't have much. But yes, we do. We eat all of our mushrooms. The shiitake are absolutely adorable. Love them to bits. And we are experimenting with a new native New Zealand quasi equivalent to lion's mane, which is an amazing fungi that we're not allowed to grow in New Zealand yet. But this native New Zealand equivalent is called coral tooth. And it's kind of been described, if the pink oyster mushroom has been described as vegan bacon, then the coral tooth or lion's mane has been described as vegan crab cake. and it's absolutely delicious. And I harvested our first cluster of that the other day. It's a crazy looking thing. Google images of lion's mane after this session if you want to have a look at this beautiful, crazy looking fungi. We also grow a lot of other food. I took great joy in buying my kumara tupu, or the kumara shoots, from Auntie, a Māori elder in the east of the country, late last year. And so we had 4 kumara beds, and we've just had joy in harvesting those. And Little Pig is our little kuni pig. He was right there next to me trying to get in to the kumara and get them before I could harvest them. So we are also doing hugel culture. That's Hugel. Hugel culture, it's a German concept of raised garden beds. It's self-watering, and over time it collapses down and you're creating soil. So we're on an ancient sand hills here. We have about this much topsoil and then it's sand. And so I've created 2 enormous hugel beds in my backyard, and I'm growing everything from tomatoes to garlic. And yeah, all your lovely leafy greens in between. So yeah, and we are going to, we have ducks and chooks. We're going to get some lambs and breed them. And Brent has, harking back to his youth, and has bought a rifle, and he's going to head up into the Tararua Ranges and bring me home venison and wild goat and wild boar. So really looking forward to the home kill as well. Well, not exactly home kill, but yeah. Okay. Any other questions? We've got about 6 minutes to go.
Being quiet in the chat, you've definitely made me even more jealous of your food now, because I know some of the other things that you've been making, and I hope I can get on a plane and come and get some in the very near future.
Fabulous.
With no more questions dropping in, I think it's probably a good point to wrap it up, and for me to say thank you so much for sharing your story with us and spending time with us today. I was so excited when I reconnected with you, because I respected your work so much as a change manager, but what you're doing now is even phenomenally more fascinating, and a beautiful accent to our conference. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everyone who joined us here live and participated in the conversation.
Wonderful. And thank you for the opportunity, Rebecca. And if anyone would like to connect with me on LinkedIn and have a follow-up conversation, more than happy to. All the best to everyone.